Opening day is tomorrow. Let's go over some gut feelings for the White Sox 2025 season on today's episode of Locked On White Sox.
You are Locked On White Sox, your daily Chicago White Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, I'm your host, Todd Welter, a lifelong Sox fan and the site expert at SouthsideShowdown.com, part of the Fan Side of the Network, and also I've covered Major League Baseball for outlets such as the Associated Press. And thanks for making Locked On White Sox your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Make sure to hit the like button on today's episode. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already, and also follow or subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Well, opening day is just a day away, so I'll go over a few gut feelings about the season because let's face it, that's what predictions are. Then let's get the nerds out of baseball. That is at least what former College World Series champion and Miami Marlins prospect Tanner Allen said. And I sat down with him to discuss this because the feeling is the White Sox lost 121 games last season, in part because they didn't have enough nerds in the front office. Then finally, no way back Wednesdays. I'm going to do some retro stuff with my guest tomorrow, former Sox outfielder Brian Anderson. So let's discuss still two relatively young players that are on the market that the Sox should add by tomorrow. All right, so if I could predict things correctly, trust me, I would be on a beach somewhere after nailing stock selections and picking the correct lottery numbers, okay? But I don't have an economics degree with a specialization in forecasting, nor did I not study meteorology in college. Therefore, I am going to be semantics police and just not use the term, these are my predictions for the 2025 season. They're just gut feelings. And that's basically what it is, unless you have like the great algorithm, and we'll talk about, getting the nerds out of baseball, unless you have like, and I don't mean to be so scientific, but unless you got the real good data analysis and the statistics and the projections, like, Pacoda runs, it's just really gut feelings. And there's nothing wrong with having gut feelings. That's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to share with you what are my gut feelings about how the season is going to go. Now, I already hit on the win goals on yesterday's episode. I don't care how many wins the Sox have, so long as it's not under 42. Okay. I would even take 43 and 119. All right. As long as the arrow is pointed up, and I talked about on yesterday's episode how that can happen with the, arrow pointing up with the young players showing promise. I just don't want to flirt nor discuss the 1916 Philadelphia A's worst winning percentage and the Sox threatening to break that record like they did almost last season. Okay. I don't want to do that. I just want hope at the end of the season. Just give me some hope. Just give me, right now we kind of see the vague shadows of maybe better days ahead with a lot of these young prospects, but I want to be able to see the next step. Just give me that, if I can go through the fog and I can see, there might be a ray of sunshine. There might be a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, that type of stuff. But if you want my gut feeling on wins, fine. I'll feed you 50. Okay. I think if Mike Clevenger, still makes me sick that he's likely going to be the closer, and a few of these bullpen arms pitch like they did in spring, I don't think the team blows 37 saves, because you got to remember, variance, struggling to score runs, terrible defense, terrible managing, just the luck going against them is one of the reasons why the White Sox were so historically awful. So if they could just, score even, I think my buddy Bez from On Tap Sportsnet, he had the projection that, if the Sox can score 50 more runs and lower their run differential by 50, I believe they would still be at like 52 wins. That type of stuff. So I think if you can just improve your run differential just a little bit and not blow so many leads like you did last season, especially so many saves, you're probably still going to get to 50, because I don't see where a lot of the runs are going to come from. This team is going to struggle to score runs with the lack of power in their lineup. But in terms of other gut feelings, here we go. In terms of power in the lineup, I do think Miguel Vargas is going to hit 25 home runs. Okay. Again, just gut feeling. He did bulk up in the offseason. I'm not convinced he's going to rake like he did in spring training, but he did look like a guy in Cactus League play who finally got over the trauma of being traded from the Dodgers to the Sox. Because I think a lot of it was right up here. I think a lot of it was like, oh my gosh, I have gone to a third world organization, basically. I remember Warren Sapp describing that years and years ago about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that they were a third world organization with just how far behind the times they are. But the Sox are making some updates, and I think they, have shown like, hey, you're still our guy. Even though Brian Ramos wasn't able to compete with them due to the elbow injury at third base, I think they, showing that and him bulking up, I think we'll get him to hit 25 home runs, especially if it is just go out and play, man. And if he has a better approach at the plate, he struggles to hit velocity, no doubt about it. But I do see a guy that can fight off pitches. So just fight off the velocity, try to get an off speed, and just crush it as hard as you can, young man. All right, second one. Andrew Benintendi will be the White Sox All-Star representative. Hot take. My guy Zach on Southside Showdown, he actually wrote about it, and he convinced me. Makes sense. Yes, Andrew Benintendi was the worst hitter in the first half of the season last year. He was. Statistically, he was. You looked at his OPS in terms of qualified batters, he was the worst. Also, I'm very, very afraid that he's going to be playing with, a recently broken hand. He says it's healed up, though. Okay. And I hope with the defensive updates that they made in the outfield, he doesn't need to play left field that much. So even though he's dealing with a hand injury, the adjustments he made in the second half where he did hit 20 home runs, I think that can carry into the season. So it wouldn't shock me if he's the All-Star representative because Luis Robert Jr. will likely be traded in May. That's my other gut feeling. I just don't see how the Sox continue to risk a potential injury and potentially killing, that could kill his trade value, letting that ride to the trade deadline. I just don't see them doing it. Remember, there's a lot of talk of them wanting to trade him before opening day. And the only reason why I don't think they traded him before opening day was they just didn't get the package that they, an offer of the return of the 2023 Luis Robert Jr., even though that's what the market was saying. You want the return for a 2023 Luis Robert Jr.? Well, he's got to prove it. He's got to stay on the field. So I don't think they carry him that long in the season. If he can make it through the very cold April where they're playing most of their games in the Midwest and 3 games on the East Coast with only 1 series against the Athletics on the West Coast, I think and if he plays solid, you got to trade him right away because there is going to be a team, I bet you, that will jump the market and be like, we need an upgrade. All right. But when it comes to other All-Star candidates, let's throw out Davis Martin and Sean Burke. They would be my other choices for All-Star representative. Again, I think the White Sox are only getting 1 All-Star representative. That's it. But Martin's kick change has been nasty all spring. Burke, he's got that moxie to duplicate Crochet. I got this gut feeling that I do think Burke can be the ace if he can overcome once baseball makes the adjustments on him. Because that's the next hurdle he has to clear. He's got the stuff to be a very good pitcher. And think about it. I'm talking about him being the ace, and then we're talking about a future rotation where maybe he's the number 4 pitcher. That's the other gut feeling. I do think if Davis Martin has a good first half, he will be traded. The reason is his club control has already had a couple of years burned. I think he's only got like 3 or 4 more years of club control. If he can be a very valuable pitcher, like we're all hoping he is, and he's showing in spring training, and even though he only, he didn't win a game, and wins don't matter to pitchers anymore, so don't expect me to give you a gut reaction on who's going to be leading the team in wins, because to me, wins for pitchers don't matter anymore. But going back to Martin, with those years already being burned, I think that they're going to want to try to get another asset back, and maybe, one with, more years of club control. So it wouldn't shock me if Davis Martin is traded. And again, for those who are like, more talent drain, the Sox have a lot of pitching depth, even with all these Tommy John injuries or Tommy John surgeries. You're going to have Noah Schultz, Hagen Smith, and Grant Taylor, and potentially Sean Burke as your starting rotation someday. That is a potentially deadly, potent starting rotation that could keep the Sox, get the Sox back to being competitive. So Davis Martin might have to go just because they need to make room at some point. In terms of making room, Lenyn Sosa will be the Sox first player that they DFA to make room for either Chase Maidroth or Colson Montgomery coming up. I just don't see him continuing to have this hot hand. I just don't. He's had too many ups and downs throughout his career. As I said, he keeps being Godfather 3, that line. You want to be out on him, and he keeps drawing you back in. How many times did he ping pong back between Charlotte and Chicago? A lot. And he's out of options. So I think if Montgomery and Maidroth keep knocking on the door, I do think that they would entertain, and especially if Sosa is not hitting, I think they entertain, DFAing him before they would DFA, say, Jacob Amaya, because, again, Jacob Amaya is at least a late inning glove replacement that you could bring off the bench. I do think Kyle Teal, Edgar Caro, Maidroth, and Montgomery all will be getting regular playing time by June. I hope they're getting regular playing time by June. I mean, the placeholders that they have at catch are fine. Matt Thaiss, at some point, though, you can just DFA him, let him go. Or again, you can trade him for a player to be named later or cash considerations because every team is going to be looking for catching depth. But if, and not that, the bars that these four have to clear, I don't think are very high. Will Venable said Chase Mydraw just has to swing at pitches over the heart of the plate a little bit more. Colson Montgomery just has to produce at AAA Charlotte. And I think Teal and Carroll are just going down to Charlotte to get reps at different positions because you want both those bats in the lineup every day. So you want to get Teal acclimated to play in the outfield again because he played it in college. You want to get Carroll acclimated to maybe play in first base or DH. So that way, when either one is catching, you can still have the other in the lineup. And, I bring up first base because Andrew Vaughn, he's going to have another replacement level season. I'm no longer on the bandwagon, and I'm going to use the reverse psychology here because last year I was banging the drum that he's going to have an all-star season, and he was a huge disappointment. So maybe if I go with the reverse mojo, maybe that'll finally get him to realize his potential, but I'm not going to hold my breath. All right, this one's going to make me vomit in my mouth a little bit. Mike Clevenger will actually be a good closer, but I don't see anyone trading for him. Again, 3 times he's been on the market, and only the Sox have taken him. So I don't see him all of a sudden being like, oh my gosh, he's an amazing closer. The character issues, I think, are just too much for to overcome to draw up a market. But I do think Penn Murphy, Cam Boozer, Tyler Gilbert, or Bryce Wilson, they'll be the relievers traded at the deadline. At least you better hope and you better hope that they're good enough to be traded because, the reliever market was very good to bullpen arms last trade deadline. And I see that I don't see how it would change again because bullpen arms are cheaper than starters. Think about it. Tanner Banks got you William Bergolla, who had a very good spring training, who showed a lot of good potential there that he could actually be, a key piece of the future. And finally, I do think top pitching prospect Grant Taylor, he is pitching out of the bullpen by August. Maybe top pitching prospects, Noah Schultz and Hagen Smith, they get a few outings with the big league club in September, maybe out of the pen, just depending on how many innings they get in the minors. All 3, though, are going to be starting the season at AA Birmingham. So my other gut feeling is I'm going to probably be watching more Barons games than I am White Sox games, much like I did last season. Well, the Nerds, they need to get out of baseball. At least that is what Well, the Nerds, they need to get out of baseball. At least that is what one College World Series champion Well, the Nerds, they need to get out of baseball. At least that is what College World Series champion Well, the Nerds, they need to get out of baseball. At least that is what College World Series champion Tanner Allen thinks. And I sat down with him because the Sox were anti-nerd for years and it led to an historic losing season. And that is coming up after the break. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keeping fuller longer. And personally, I love the no shells variety. It's a perfect grab and go snack for busy days. I love the roasted and salted flavor. Perfect blend of salt and roasted, so I don't feel like I need to drink a gallon of water after snacking on them. I'm also a big fan of the honey roasted flavor too. Just pure blast of great flavor on every bite. And whether I'm snacking at my desk or on a road trip or just need quick protein boost, they're always my go-to. And if you love cracking open every shell for that satisfying crunch, the in-shell options, they're a classic favorite too. Plus, Wonderful Pistachios is a complete protein, providing all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, make sure to hit the like button on today's episode and subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox if you've not done so already. And if you can't catch the show on YouTube, Locked On White Sox is available on all major podcast platforms, so make sure to follow or subscribe on places such as Apple or Spotify. Either way, get your 30-minute fix of Chicago White Sox baseball venting with me. Tanner Allen, he won a College World Series with Mississippi State, and he got drafted by the Miami Marlins. So beyond his ties to Sox farmhand Tim Elko and us fans wanting Kim Ng to run the Sox, you might be wondering, why are you having this dude on the show? Well, first, I had a great conversation with him, and I learned a ton. And second, he had this tweet go viral. This is at Tanner_Allen10. Dear Baseball, please remove all nerds from our wonderful sport. Please replace them with qualified former players and veterans of the game. ... Grown men who truly know this game. From everyone who's truly passionate about our game. And he tweeted this out on March 20th, 2025. And it's up, at the time when him and I had the discussion, I took the screen grab that you're seeing on YouTube. If you're watching, it's up to 2.2 million views. And shout out to Jordan Lazowski of Sox on 35th for finding it, because when I saw it, I even responded to Jordan's quote tweet that by ignoring analytics for years, that helped lead the Sox to lose 121 games. It was well documented in The Athletic. However, I reached out to Tanner to get why he thought that way. And let me tell you, he's not anti-nerd. He's even what I agree with. Let's streamline all the analytics into useful information, and let's blend the need for that information with still having the eye test. Because if you want to win in the margins, small execution details still matter.
All right, so it's not that I don't want the nerd, or it's not that I want the nerds out of baseball. I just feel like they need to play their role a little bit better. And I mainly sent the tweet out the other day, mainly because a good friend of mine I played with in Mississippi State, his name's Jake Mangum. And he's on the 40-man roster with the Rays. He has a really good spring training at big league camp, and he's hitting almost 400, maybe even over 400. And they send him and they option him to AAA, and they keep a guy that's hitting 180. Okay. And for me, I've kind of had enough of it. I've lived it firsthand on how analytics has been taken too far. And I think that was the number one example for me, was right there. And I felt like it needed to be said. And ever since I sent the tweet out, I can't tell you how many friends in baseball, people on Twitter in baseball still have reached out and like, man, keep going. We love it. There's just too much. It has gone to an extreme level that we need to back off a little bit. Let's put it like that. So,
yeah, and one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on was because of the ties to the White Sox. You know, one of the reasons why it was reported in The Athletic, like why the White Sox got to this 121 losses, was because they were actually behind the times in data and analytics. On the flip side, you were in the Marlins organization, where it's like Peter Bendix just basically unravels everything that Kim Ng does. And now it looks like they're directionless. So based on your experience, what is that like sweet spot that, you know, a team should have?
I'll give you a prime example of a sweet spot. I think that I have lived through. Like I said, I have lived through it. I've been in the moment. I have been in the dugout with the analytic guys. I have been in a scouting report before the game with analytic guys. Okay, I've done it. I'm not just getting on YouTube and listening to somebody's story. No, I have lived it. And here's one story where I think analytics has benefited me. Probably got two for you, or one that's benefited me, and one that would have hurt me if analytics would have been a real big thing back when I played in college. Anyways, so the first good one, we're playing for a super regional in Duty Noble in 2021. And it's game one at Mississippi State. We're playing Notre Dame, and they have a left-handed pitcher. His name's John Michael Bertrand. He said he's still playing pro ball. And the scouting report in our hitters meeting before the game, we had some analytic guys in the dugout or in on staff, and they had come to conclusion, hey, look, left-handed hitters, guys, if he gets to 0-1 in the count, if he gets a strike on you, he's 90% throwing a slider the next pitch. Okay, that is something I would love to have in my back pocket, right? So I go to the plate, my first at bat, 15,000 people going crazy. We're one of the best teams in the country. We're about to make our run to Omaha, right? This is the year we won the national championship. And John Michael throws me a fastball, first pitch right over the plate, strike one. Next pitch, I'm sitting on the slider, right? He flips the slider up there. I hit it in the parking lot, right center. Okay. That is one instance where I was like, hey, look, I love that kind of, analytic dissection of what this pitcher is going to do. I love that. I'll give you another quick story on where it could have hurt me. My sophomore year at Mississippi State, I come out and I have a really good opening weekend. And then after that, I just struggle, man. I'm hitting like 220. I was just come off a freshman All-American year, one of the best freshmen in the country, having real high hopes for this year. I'm starting to get a lot of attention on campus. I think I'm somebody, right? And I have a really good opening weekend, National Player of the Week. And then after that, it's just straight downhill. I'm talking hitting like 220, not playing very good. And the data and analytics tells Coach Lamonis, who's our head coach, to put me on the bench. Put me on the bench. But instead of listening to that, he brought me into his office, sat me down, and said, listen, TA, you are my first baseman. You're my 3-hole hitter. I believe in you. I think you need to get with Coach Gotro and get this swing figured out and keep working really hard. I believe in you. I have your back. I'm going to ride or die with you. After that meeting, I proceeded to finish the year hitting 350 and being an All-American.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you just shared that story, because that's a prime example of how both can work each way. Because I'm of the belief of everything should be blended. You should still have the eye test, for example. Like, for example, I think the Cubs are cutting back on their scouting because they can just model and project. But being somebody who has been scouted, being somebody who has played the game at a very high level, has won a College World Series, doesn't it work to at least get some eyeballs, like, for example, on you, or getting eyeballs on your teammates, and that's just so know that, there's character involved. There's, like you said, maybe you were just struggling because there was just something going on and you needed to have a sit down with a hitting coach, and there, boom, you're back on
Right.
track.
Exactly. When you're struggling, I'm sorry, but the last thing I'm going to go to is the computer. I'm going to go to the baseball mentor or the baseball. For me in pro ball, I know everybody's like, well, your pro ball career was terrible. No. Okay. Yes. My first 2 years of pro ball were not fun. But my third year, I had a really good year. And last year, before I got released, I was playing really well. But I just got a tough situation happened in Pensacola. And that's part of it. I'm okay with it, man. I don't miss pro ball. I've moved on. I promise you. But when I'm struggling, I promise you, I would 100% rather talk to a guy who has been around the game for 30 years, coached some of the best players, seen everything with the game firsthand, right? He's played in between the lines, and he's dealt with failure before in his life. I would 100% rather go listen to him than have somebody who went to Harvard or Yale and studied, statistics for 4 years, and they can read a computer screen and they're trying to tell me what to do. Like, no offense to them. That's not their fault. They haven't been around the game. They don't have feel for the game. I would rather be around somebody that has been around the game for 30 years or
What
has been a mentor and that can mentor me as a player. And don't get me wrong, maybe some common ground would be here. Hey, the guy who has been around the game for 30 years can also communicate with the new guy who's behind the technology and come together and find some common ground to work on. But I just feel like, from my personal experience in the game with the people that love the analytics and are behind the computer, all that stuff, it just doesn't happen that often. It just doesn't.
Well, I have a hypothesis, and tell me if I'm wrong, because again, you've been drafted, you've been scouted, that type of stuff. I believe, though, that it can never hurt to have, like, again, the guy behind the computer maybe tell some of the scouts where to be, especially when it comes to drafting, when it comes to looking for minor league talent and trades. Because again, we talked about this off camera. I'm fascinated by roster construction and talent acquisition, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Could that be a good use of data analytics? And the reason why I bring it up is because the White Sox were just so outdated in how they're building these things up. So that's just a hypothesis I have. I want to run it by a guy who's actually, again, been in the lines.
Yeah, there's a fine line with that little hypothesis you just said, and I believe it's like this. You can go watch a guy play, okay, and the computer's going to tell you, hey, he's got really good power, he's got a really good swing, he can run really fast, he can do all this, right? But if I'm a baseball guy and I go watch him play, he's got all the tools, and he struggles that night, and he tears the dugout down after he strikes out, and he takes his offense now to defense and cannot play defense. He can't handle failure. That guy is not going to be successful in the game. I know the computer might say he will be, but this game is dominated by failure. If you succeed 7 or 3 out of 10 times, you're an All-American, right? So that means 7 other times you're failing. So you've got to have a good mixture. Yeah, I'd love to know the numbers on, hey, man, that's awesome. This guy's hitting the ball really hard. What's his numbers on strikeouts? You know what I mean? That's a big overlooked one nowadays. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to have a guy in the lineup that strikes out 50% of the time. That's not happening. You don't win that way. And, and I just believe, a baseball guy who's been around the game, has played the game, know what it's like to struggle, to have success, all that. He's going to go watch a game so much more differently and scout a game differently than somebody who is trying to learn behind the computer, watching the analytics.
Right. And did that kind of is that starting to go on in Miami? Because like I said, I have no idea what the Marlins are doing, and they're in the running to be one of the worst teams along with the White Sox. And you were in that organization. I know you said something else went on, but it just seems like everything got unraveled that Kim Ng did in the Marlins. And that's a person that the White Sox fans, we wanted to run the team.
Yeah, man, I just believe the Marlins, they were really, really nice to me, man. They gave me an opportunity to play professional baseball, and I will forever be grateful for it. Now, did I have a great time playing professional baseball? No, it just wasn't for me. I didn't like being away from home all summer long, being with a bunch of people that I really didn't know that well, who really didn't care to get to know me that well. We didn't have a really now the guys, the teammates, and my AA manager last year, Smoke, outstanding, had a blast. Last year, before I got released, I told Smoke this. was the most fun I've ever had on a baseball diamond besides 2021 when we won the national championship. It was just a blast. And the reason is because he brought back a competitive atmosphere to baseball for me. It mattered to win. It mattered, to come through late in the game. It mattered to move the runner over to third when there's a runner at second less than 2 outs. Like all that stuff mattered. That's the beauty of the game. Nowadays, it's like, well, especially I believe in their organization is, hey, look, I don't care where the runner is or what he's doing. Hit the ball over the fence as hard as you can. They'll tell you, hey, it matters. We want to see you execute all these little things. No, it does not matter. Okay, I promise. I promise. The only thing that matters is they want to see exit velocity, how hard you hit it, how many times you can hit it over the fence, and if you can play good defense. There's no baseball players. Now, can that win? Yes, it can win. You can win and lose by guerrilla baseball, which is home runs, right? You can win and lose by it. So I just think now there are so many players in minor league baseball that people have no idea about who are really, really good players, baseball players, not just a power hitter, right?
Yeah. No, I love that you're bringing this up because, again, I'm not at war with analytics. I mean, again, I grew up collecting baseball cards. You look at the back, you always want to look at numbers, that type of stuff. But I
Yeah.
love how you brought up baseball players because, especially like for the White Sox, they play at a ballpark where, yes, it plays the power, but as you've probably experienced, you're going to go through power droughts. So that's when you do need baseball players to be able to manufacture runs. And shouldn't, the one thing with I think the stats get lost in is the whole goal is score runs and prevent
Score
runs, right?
runs. I
Yeah.
think one of the lost talents or nuggets of the game is hitting with runners in scoring position. Right? If it's late in the game, okay, and it's a big game, and it's a tie ball game, bottom of the ninth, and the winning run is at second base. Do you want the guy at the plate who strikes out 50% of the time? No chance. No. But you want the baseball player up there who might not have 30 home runs, but he might be hitting 280 with 10 or 15 home runs. But when there's a runner in scoring position, he's hitting 340, right? That's who you want at the plate. Now, like I said, that is a good stat to have. What is this guy hitting when runners in scoring position? Okay. What does he do when there's 2 outs and runners in scoring position? How many times does he get on base? Those are good analytic stats that you might want to look into, not just how many home runs does he hit and how hard does he hit it. You know what I mean?
No.
Batting average is a lost stat. Batting average was the most important stat. Now it's like irrelevant. I don't understand. Batting average correlate and relates to everything. If I'm hitting the ball hard, I'm going to have a good batting average. If I'm swinging at strikes and not chasing, I'm going to have a good batting average. If I'm taking my walks, I'm having a good batting average. If I'm hitting runners in scoring position, I'm hitting well. I'm going to have a good batting average. All that stuff ties into batting average. So I don't understand why I'm not buying into, hey, it's okay to hit 140. It's okay. That's not, we don't worry about that. No. Are you kidding me? You're getting on base 1 out of 10 times. You're getting a hit 1 out of 10 times. I'm not buying into that. I think baseball is made up of guys who really are passionate about the game, who do the little things the right way. For instance, if I go up to the plate and I hit a home run, awesome, right? That's awesome, big time. Solo home runs don't beat anybody. There's got to be somebody on base to have something worth, right? To have a 3-run homer, or you want a solo homer. I want a 3-run homer, right? But anyway, so I hit a home run. My next at bat, I drop a bunt down and get on base. That's called being a baseball player. You look at the third baseman, he's playing back. Oh, guy just hit a homer. Then you drop a bunt on him. He don't have any idea where to play me. Right? It's little bitty things in the game that are getting overlooked that it makes our game not even fun to watch. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to watch a strikeout fest. Everybody loves the electric arms, right? That's really fun to watch. That is really cool. But if they can't throw strikes, nobody wants to watch a walk fest. That's the most boring thing in the game. You know what I mean? If the game's on the line, here's another analytic story or point I'm going to make is if the game is on the line and Johnny's at the plate, he's a left-handed hitter and the pitcher on the mound is a left-handed pitcher, but it says Johnny's not hitting good against lefties. I'm not going to put a right-handed batter in the game who hasn't had an at bat in 3 weeks, right? That's not going to work. It doesn't work that way. I'm going to leave Johnny up there to hit because maybe Johnny's hot at this time, right? Maybe he's on a roll. He's seen the ball really good. I'm going to ride or die with that guy. You know what I mean? It's just people have no idea how hard it is to come off the bench completely cold and hit in a big spot too. So it's just a lot of things have tied in to make this game so complicated when it's really very, very simple. Like you said, score more runs than the other team.
It sounds like if you had more than 140 characters, you probably would have just said, look, data analytics are fine. Like you're saying, it's got to be the right data analytics. And let's put some context behind the stuff like WRC
Yeah.
plus, WRC plus, I don't mind because again, it's at least a measurement tool to tell you of your quality. There's some context there. We can disagree on maybe if you don't like it or that, but OPS, a little bit of context, but you're right. Average has been complete. That's why I always measure slash line. I'm always citing slash line and OPS and that type of stuff. So I love that. Got a couple more questions for you, but before I get to that, what have you been up to? It sounds like you want to do a hitting school or whatever. I want to make sure you got some time because you've been so generous with your time. I want to make sure you get a chance to plug what you've
Man.
been up to.
So here's what I got going. So the main problem we have on social media today is there are a lot of people that are not qualified and have no idea what they're talking about. Coaching and mentoring these young guys coming up, college, high school guys coming up, and they have no direction. And they're trusting somebody who has a blue check beside their name, just that makes them qualified, know what they're talking about, right? But then you go look these people up and you're like, man, this guy never played past high school. This guy played D2, D3, which is fine. That's still making it further. But for my sake is like, I've played Division I baseball in the best league in America. I've been the best player in that league. I've been the best player in America. I've won a national championship. I've been a 3-time All-American. I've got drafted, played professional baseball. I know I might not have had the most successful professional baseball career, but I've had a 1 in a billion baseball career. Every kid in America right now would give any amount of money to have my career, what I did. Okay. And for me, I feel like it's a responsibility for me to give back to them in a way of, hey, I'm going to create an online baseball course. I've already got one, but it wasn't as good as I wanted it. But I'm going to make the most unbelievable, detailed opportunity for these kids to learn how to become the best version of themselves so that they will have an opportunity to play baseball at the highest level like I did. And there's nobody better in the country to teach them to do that than me because I have done it firsthand. I know what it takes. So I'm in the process of creating that. I did a lot of video footage last Saturday. It went really well. It's going to be high quality, intense detail, and also I'm going to bring a simplified method of learning the baseball swing and learning how the swing works. Everybody makes it so complicated, right? I tell people all the time, hitting a baseball is the hardest thing in sports. The mechanics of hitting a baseball are so simple. So simple. But we get caught up in making it so much more than it is, right? The object of hitting a baseball is hit it on the barrel. If you cannot consistently hit it on the barrel, I don't care how strong you are, how far you can hit it, how pretty of a swing you have. If you can't do that, you're not going to play. So I bring the most simplified form and method of teaching how to hit a baseball. And then also I'm going to throw in some more nuggets on base running, defense, all kind of little bitty things that are going to help guys that were like me. I'm not 6'5", 240. I'm 5'11", 6 foot, 190 pounds, but my game played. And I know there's a lot of kids out there that are like, man, I'm not big and strong. Well, you can play the game. I'm going to show you how to do it. You just got to do the little thing right, the correct way all the time to get noticed. And I'm going to teach you how to do that. So that's what I got going on. I've been doing a lot of keynote speaking too. Man, like the sweatshirt says, just Jesus. That's all you need, man. It's all you need. And it took me 25 years to figure that out. But once you start putting Jesus at the center of your life, everything else just falls right into place. And that's what I'm trying to go around and encourage young men and women today is I know there's a lot of people. I don't have a platform like I used to, but I still have one. And I'm doing my best to use it to promote the love of Jesus Christ and how he can save your life because he saved mine.
2 young players are back on the market, and I think the White Sox should jump at the chance to get them. One I've already made the call for, and will again. Another fits to what the Sox should be doing right now. Find former failed prospects off the scrap heap and see if there's something that can be revived. Let's discuss that next on Locked On White Sox. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. It has all-in-one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing your money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trade supply house. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. Again, promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Welcome back to Locked On White Sox. I'm your host, Todd Welter. Again, shout out to all the everydayers. I appreciate your loyalty. Please hit the like button on today's episode and recommend to your fellow Sox fans or baseball fans, friends, to subscribe to the YouTube channel at Locked On White Sox, wherever they get their podcasts, as the show's available on all major podcast platforms. So I made the plea for the Sox to add Alexander Canario once the Cubs DFA'd him to make room on the roster for Justin Turner. Well, they didn't, so he goes to the Mets. Well, guess what? He ran into the same situation with the Mets, just no room at the end regarding their outfield. And since he's out of options, he is being waived. And remember, talent isn't the problem with Canario. There's strikeouts and there's health issues, but hitting for power, that's not his problem. And remember, the Cubs outfield was stacked. So is the Mets. And the New York Post's Dan Martin wrote that Canario's OPS over 1,000 in spring training will make it unlikely he passes through waivers, so the Mets would like to trade him. And once again, Sox need a power bat, and since he went from the Cubs to the Mets for cash considerations, pony up the money, White Sox. Go get this power bat Chris Getz. Now, if the Sox don't want him for some reason or are penny pitching, okay, fine. Then add former number 1 overall pick Mickey Moniak, who was just released by the Angels yesterday. At the end of the day, if this team is not going to give its young prospects knocking on the big league door some runway to start the season, then give that runway to some of these failed former prospects off the scrap heap. And for those that are applying some sort of standard that these guys are just not good enough to make, the Mets or the Angels, remember 2 things. The Sox lost 121 games last season, and the Sox are going to lose 100-plus games again. So not really, you can't really apply these standards of, I don't want this guy, because this guy probably is better than half the players the White Sox have, at least right now on their roster. And also, this is the perfect time to see if you can find your Brent Rooker. My suggestion, if you want to counter, I don't want these players. This is just a suggestion, is go with, what have the Sox ever taken someone's cast off and revived a career? At least when it comes to position players. They've been able to do it, obviously, with Eric Fetty and pitching. But when it comes to position players, yes, it's been a while. So I would understand that argument back. So that's my suggestion. But maybe new director of hitting Ryan Fuller can change that. Still, it can't hurt to see if Moniak's left-handed bat can come off the bench and at least provide a bit of pop. He's had 28 home runs over the past 2 seasons. He can play a solid defensive center field. So if Luis Robert Jr. gets traded, he can at least hit just a bit better and at least a little bit more power than, say, Travis Jankowski or Michael A. Taylor. And all 3, remember, they can catch the ball. It's just the hitting for power is the only thing that Moniak can sort of provide. Although for those wanting the Sox to lose as many games as possible for the best odds in the MLB lottery draft next season to get the number 1 pick in 2026, I discussed it on yesterday's show. Moniak is one of the cautionary tales of a top pick just not working out. He was taken out of high school by the Phillies in 2016, and he was given up on Philadelphia in 2022 when he was traded to the Angels. He showed some promise in 2023 with a 280, 307, 495 slash line with a 14 home runs, 1.8 F4, and a WRC plus of 114 in 83 games. However, he was terrible last season, and he had a terrible spring training, and that led to him getting released. He's still 26, so can't hurt to kick the tires on any of these guys. And if you want to cite, he strikes out a lot too. So does Michael A. Taylor, and he's on a big league deal. Well, that wraps up this edition of Locked On White Sox. Thank you for making Locked On White Sox your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast with hosts Dominique Martino and Matthew Ane. MLB fantasy draft season is here. Be the most informed fan and set yourself up for a league win. Find Locked On Fantasy Baseball on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And I'll be back tomorrow with a discussion of what it's like to play on opening day with former Sox outfielder Brian Anderson. Feel free to leave comments about today's discussion regarding this year's gut feelings that I have. My discussion with Tanner Allen on wanting the nerds out of baseball, and the Sox should bring in 2 young outfielders available on the market right now. You can leave them at the episode page on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, at ToddJDub or at Locked On Sox, or you can email me, LockedOnWhiteSox@gmail.com. Have a great day, and I will see you tomorrow.